Hello, hello. Oh, I see Nanny Puffin's face way up there at the top. What'd you do, Nanny? Thank you. Appreciate it. Y'all let me know if my audio sounds better than my other first video in this studio. I did change the audio settings. I also changed up my lighting situation as well. Audio sounds good. Thank you, Judy. Yeah, man. What a day. What a day. Today was one of those days I was blocking them. Today was one of those days. I'm talking about. I'm not even going to get into it. You already know when a matter becomes clear, it ceases to concern us. This is why it's hard for people to catch up in the archaics paradigm. This is why it's very difficult to, people come into the archaics family and they see what's going on here and they understand why there is some profound information being revealed. And a lot of people get discouraged because they're not up there with the veterans. Archaics veterans have been following me from almost the beginning and they get it. And Frederick Nietzsche did not tell us a lie. He was telling us the truth. When a matter becomes clear, it ceases to concern us. When we have learned a core fundamental about our reality, it's no longer a mystery. And the enigmatic is now shelved. We don't care anymore. I didn't even know that my new tablet sounded like that. How do I turn this off? Put this over there. So, we got one complaining, sound is lacking. So when a matter becomes clear, it ceases to concern us. We shelve the enigmatic. It's no longer a mystery. So I get it. We're going to be getting into our immortalhood today. We're going to cover some new ground. Yeah, full moon, I guess, a lot of weird stuff happening. There's no doubt. No doubt. Thank you, moderators. Many of the moderators received their packages. A lot of you guys, Archaics Academy, have already received your drives. 70 something drives went out, so getting only two people contacting us that their drives were damaged. We understand that. Sometimes they put those packages under X-ray and they do mess up those drives. So we'll just resend them. Throw some Archaics merch in there. A little sticker or something. Yeah. You're going to have to deal with the sound. In the middle of the video, I'm not changing any of the settings. I learned about that in the past. So, Virginia Beach, I want to make my announcements right now. Virginia Beach is still on the table. Still got some. We're absolutely sold out of Asheville. Asheville's off the table. But Virginia Beach is still on the table. And we will be hanging out at the beach. No doubt. All right, I'm not going to be able to pay attention too much to this. Thank you, moderators, for being there, helping out. I went through the blocked names. Over the years, Archaics has been attacked by so many people, man. I adopted a policy of just zero tolerance. Blocked a lot of people. Well, I unblocked a lot of people today, looking for one individual. I was just looking for one individual to see if they were really blocked or if something else was going on. And I saw a bunch of familiar names from the past, and I don't remember why they were blocked, and they may not have been blocked by me, by somebody else. So I unblocked a lot of people. But if you were really trolling back in the day, don't get your hopes up. I remember your name, and I promise you didn't get unblocked. All right. So I appreciate if my mods would put my Archaics Academy email link in there? Somebody? Virginia Beach Police, thank you guys. Also, Christina the Astonishing did a very good little video. Nice little jingle. Would somebody please put the link to Christina the Astonishing's video in there? That's amazing. It's crazy. It's just crazy. She did the intro to my Archaics movie, if you guys remember. And that was a blast. That was a blast. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Immortal, if you have to ask me who I'm talking about, you need to watch this video. You may need to go into my We Immortals playlist and watch a few other ones too, and some of my podcasts. But the Immortal is not alone. Never alone. The Immortal knows that where she goes, there is always another. We are never alone. There is no singularity in awareness. It doesn't exist. What any immortal experiences inside the construct is experienced by source as well. You need to process that because the implications are explosive. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you takes on a much deeper meaning when you realize you aren't alone in this experience. There is someone behind your eyes. Think about it, guys. Do unto others, because what you do unto others, you just may be doing to God as well. The Immortal has eyes. We all have eyes. But they are how the oversoul sees within the construct. We can all taste. We have tongues. The Immortal can taste. So the oversoul can enjoy the products of its creativity. The Immortal has transcended all religions. If you come into Archaics and you have problems wrestling some of the concepts that are conveyed here, these concepts have been arrived at by long processes of elimination of variables, extraneous material, reducing things to their lowest common denominators. This is what the Archaics research brings to the table, stripping away the cultural and the sometimes socio-political dressings just to get to the underlying core beliefs and facts. The Immortal has transcended all religions, all philosophies, the thought constructs of men. These are all mere attempts to define what is undefinable. It is the absurd desire of the finite to seek limits upon what is limitless. It's absurd. We are not alone. The Immortal knows that power comes from source. Only from within can that power be tapped into. The power of the Immortal comes from within. But the tools of the Immortal are in the construct. I tell you guys all the time, information is not in the brain. Information is in the field. You need to realize when you're a broadcaster and when you're a receiver, when you are a doer and when you are just living a very boring victimhood reactive life. The Immortal is never alone. The Immortal inspires fear, but feels none. Is that you? Understanding that he is wrapped in the very armor of the Godhead himself. I'm going to repeat that. The Immortal, inside the construct, inspires fear, but fear feels none. And this is simply because it's a byproduct of a relationship. It's simply because the immortal knows that he or she is protected by the divine. And anyone who truly believes that fears nothing. The immortal knows that what God is, so are they. And that it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to not have a relationship. It's just not. It's not possible. If we are never alone, if the immortal is moored to source, it's impossible not to have a relationship with source. The problem is that we interpret our experiences as being something separate from the very projections that we make in accordance with that mooring to source. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. We are never alone. And the very fact that we are never alone brings strength to the living, but it brings despair to the lost. So it's impossible not to have a relationship with something that makes up the very fabric of our own being. We are inextricable from that which we refer to as God. The very idea that there's a separation between us and source is absurd. But that idea is exactly what is promoted in dungeon programming everywhere. We are made up of the very fabric of God. Therefore, a relationship exists, whether we choose to benefit from it or not. Your life is the direct result of where you have placed yourself in that relationship. So this is what we're going to discuss. Let me look at my chat. Check out my chat here. I just wanted to get my little intro out the way and talk about what we're going to be talking about today. All right. Everything looks good. Some of you don't like the sound, but you can still hear me. Oh yeah, when you start looking at it from this perspective, many of the things that Jesus said are so on point. Again, I'm not going to beat y'all up with the prodigal son. The parable of the prodigal son, decoding that is literally decoding your place here in the construct. It's exactly what it is. Everything looks good. I'm going to remove that from my studio. All right, we're doing it. Got a few people in the chat. That's great. So yeah, I get triggered a lot. I just get triggered a lot by these holier than thou personalities. I know it's fictitious. I know it's a fraud. I know these people are putting off a front. I know because I grew up in that environment. I grew up in a Southern Baptist environment, and I remember very clearly people from the neighborhood and the lives they lived and what was going on. I was a kid. I used to jump over fences, jump over backyards. I used to climb on fences to get on roofs and then get onto the next fence and the next roof. Man, this is my childhood. I'm an 80s kid. This is what I did. and I learned a lot about the people of the neighborhood. I went to school. I learned about my teachers when they weren't teaching at school. I learned about other students. I saw what lives they lived. And I remember that my life was so compartmentalized. And I used to go to school in the world that was conveyed to me in my education wasn't anything like the world behind the closed doors of my home. That was a very different world. And it went by different rules. And I was told to interpret things in a very different way than I was at school. In my free time, I would explore the real world, and I would find that things were not the same as at school. Things were not the same as in my home. And because of my mother, you guys know, I was raised in a Southern Baptist environment. 5 times a week we had church activities because she was a church administrator. And I got to see this facade. I got to see how people put on this makeup of belief and faith and religiosity. And I watched their personal conduct. And I remember even as a youth being angry. And I was full of indignation. I would sit in the pew and I would just look at some of my fellow classmates and like, you're wearing that little yellow dress and shoes and you look all pristine and absolute picture of purity. But I know the same people from school and know what they do after school. And I was like, I was raised in this environment. Like, wow, everything is fake. Everything is artificial. And it used to trouble me. I used to get morally indignant about these things. But I kept them to myself. And as I grew older, after 26 years in prison, I'm released back into the free world. And I look around and I see, and I'm not fooled anymore. I spent 26 years in many of them maximum security prisons, and I got to know the human family. I got to understand what makes people tick among some of the dangerous people in the United States. I was with them. I watched the violence. I was a part of the violence. I experienced all this. And through it all, I saw these facades. And I learned very quickly how to neutralize them and get to the core fundaments of a person's being. And within minutes, have people talking and telling me things that they would have never thought they would have ever told another human soul. And I just developed this ability to communicate with people with integrity and honesty. And people opened up to me and I would listen. I was like, wow, it's so profound. You're nothing like the image you project to be. Nothing. And I found this over and over and over with everybody I came into contact with. So my suspicions were confirmed when I realized it's the same with the prison guards. It was the same with the prison administrators. It was the same with everybody I came into contact with. Upon release from prison, I maintain a neutral field. And as long as I maintain that neutrality, people come and go. And I learned fascinating details from people when they weren't even trying to convey them. Over and over, I made people a study. And I realized that it's not just people that are artificial. It's not people acting in accordance to the costume of the day. And I realized there's a deep spiritual, profound lesson. There's a takeaway here. And that takeaway comes from a totally different perspective. Not the perspective of a human, but from the perspective of something greater, something deeper. And I realized, and it meant something very profound to me because of the pattern of my life, because of the violence, because I had a short fuse in prison, because sometimes I just didn't let somebody defend themselves before I just went ahead and executed judgment and did what prison culture demanded of me. And I realized that we are being viewed and studied, and every decision we make is being weighed. And I realized, and it became so obvious to me when I made this realization many years ago, and many of you have an idea of where I'm going with this because you've heard me say this in prior presentations. that some of you are going to be really surprised at just how cool God really is. The discovery that I had made is that judgment is not uniform. Judgment is not uniform to all people. This idea of an Old Testament law, that's dungeon programming. That's not how the spirit world really operates. There are no do's and don'ts, and none of that stuff. None of that stuff exists. This is a neutral field that something has contaminated. Maybe humanity has contaminated it. Maybe we created an AI system in the ancient past, which has now convinced us it's the far future. That's a subject matter for other videos. But what is clear is that we are studied from the perspective of the contagion of the times. Meaning, a 25-year-old woman, from a moral standpoint, in 1952, who had been raised under certain ethics and social standards, who was to go out of her way to do something that would have been absolutely socially acceptable in 1987, even more so in 2017. Judgment then becomes a discretionary act for what a woman could not do in 1891 sitting on a horse. Or you guys know what I'm talking about. In the old days, women sat side saddle. Culture would have thought it was an absolute sin for a woman to straddle an animal, a horse. Yeah, there was a lot of write-ups in the past about that. And women sat side saddle. They made special saddles for that as well. So this when God views us, the judgment is always delayed. There's always a period of time where the oversoul is waiting for basically for that individual immortal to rectify the situation, correct the situation, or learn from the situation. But the hammer of judgment doesn't fall like people think it does, because the oversoul has already taken into consideration the innumerous myriads of socio-political variables that had already happened in your youth that would have molded and basically created the path that you found yourself walking down. Every echelon of society, every path that we take in our walk, in our personal walks, if we were a 19-year-old Roman male who in anger picked up a stone and accidentally killed somebody he was only trying to hurt, the judgment for that by the people may have been indentured servitude. It may have been a fine if he was from an equestrian family or higher. It may have been death, which is tit for tat. But from the perspective of the divine, the judgment comes in a totally different fashion. It comes in different ways. It takes into consideration everything that individual soul has been exposed to. The reason I'm telling you this is because I have this deep sense that the majority of the human family condemn themselves more than God would ever do. And the reason for this is organized religion. I've been running my mouth and I need to check my chat again. All good. Like this big screen. See my chat. I can see my chat real clear now. I can see this big screen is awesome. So this also opens up a whole new awareness. If we are told, if we are specifically told, judge not, lest ye be judged, are you going to call the Godhead, the Oversoul, a hypocrite? I'm not. If I am to do all things to be like the Oversoul, if I am to mimic spirituality as much as I can to strengthen my connection to Source, if Source informs me to judge not, lest ye be judged, then am I calling God a hypocrite? Or am I being revealed a fundamental aspect about our Creator that religions have lied to us about? They call him the great arbiter. They call him the judge. They call him the Almighty. They call it Judgment Day. But that's religiosity speaking. Could it be that we have been looking at this from a totally wrong vantage point from the beginning? The clue is in the prodigal son. I've told you in the past, the prodigal son. Two sons lived with the father. They were giving a core set of rules to live by. One son never disobeyed and never left home and never experienced anything. The other son rebelled against the father, left home, went whoring, lost all his money, got beat up, had his possessions taken from him, was hungry, got sick, but eventually humbled himself and came back home to face his father. There's a real curious element missing out of that parable of Jesus. Who can say what's missing from the story? I want to see it in the chat. What's missing from the prodigal son story that organized religion has basically beat us up with? The reason why we have to do right all the time because of this one phenomenon. What is it? Kethius Errant 2106. It's judgment. In the prodigal son, which I've told you guys, it's the key parable that unlocks everything. Our whole dynamic situation as errants, as those who go our own way. That the prodigal son was errant number one, alpha errant. Did his own thing. And what happened? He was not judged. He was rewarded. Yeah. He went out and saw the world. He did the experiences. He did right and wrong. What did Genesis start off with? A tree of knowledge of good and evil. Both of them were made accessible to mankind. Why? Why? It has everything to do with our experience. We are inside a construct. This construct has been sequestered away from a real reality. I've already shown you the arithmetic. I've shown you the chronography. It's all there. It's in the stories. It's in the traditions. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. You know the song, guys. You know it. You know the song. And like 100 other fables, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, it's all been there for us. We are not alone. If every single one of us has in attendance also a fragment of the Godhead, then that means we are so many myriads of tiny pieces of God, all experiencing things that the actual creator by himself could never experience. The difference between objectivity and subjectivity. So the creation of an artificial construct that contains, remember I've told you in myriads of presentations, I've given you all my evidence as to why this is a containment field. It is not a real reality, it is a perceived reality. It is the perfect place for the eternal to experience its own creative genius. It does it through the many immortal fragments, personalities that it has created to enjoy its own creation. The clue is in all these traditions and stories of the eye. Like in the Muslim, the pre-Islamic Arabian traditions of the altar of God covered with 1,080 eyes. Eyes are used to observe. Inside the construct, the eternal can move through the immortals. The immortal is a vehicle by which the creator enjoys the creation. The takeaway from this amazing revelation is that those who come to comprehend that they are absolutely moored to source have absolutely nothing to fear. This is one of the most profound revelations that can be absorbed from the Archaic's data. We are not alone. I can't express into words. I don't have the necessary vocabulary to wrap this up into a pretty poetic prose type narrative that you would absorb. It doesn't exist. The words to define such an incredible revelation do not exist. So we have to use the tools available to us. Jesus did. It's called a parable. The parable of the prodigal son. No judgment was issued. The son rebelled, and in that rebellion, the punishment for rebellion was the sadness he felt, the hunger he routinely felt, the lack of shelter, being cold when it rained on him, wet, soiled, getting boils and rashes, and being hungry all the time. And the punishment was having his money taken after he whored all night and he couldn't even remember what he did. Being drunk, waking up being drunk and waking up with a hangover. The prodigal son went out and did what he wanted to and experienced everything the construct could throw at him. And he was rewarded. The son that stayed behind gave the Godhead no satisfaction. The son that stayed behind gave back to God nothing for his existence. The Godhead experienced nothing new through the blind obedience of the other son. The parable, I've already gone deep in my other prior videos on the parable of the prodigal son. The only new thing to add to that parable in this video is the one element that's missing. I don't know how I missed that before, but the main element missing is there was no judgment, it was reward. I can't be faulted for missing that. Like you, I have been poisoned by the dungeon programming protocols of the construct, these religious protocols that get us to interpret falsely the divine informations that have been put into the field for us to absorb. I'll drink to that. So this all sounds really good, but Jason, what are you talking about? This is very deep. Yeah, I know God. I mean, God is always here. I'm always connected to him. I understand. Jason, what does it means that you have been beating yourself up unnecessarily. Where you are in life, in your happiness, in your finances, in your coordinates, has everything to do with how you perceive your relationship with Source to be. But if you truly understand that Source has already provided for forgiveness, has already provided for exodus, has already provided for protection, has already provided for sustenance, has already provided for information, has already provided for a whole future outside the construct, then there's nothing left to figure out except that Source has created us to experience everything we want to experience without fear of judgment. And that comes with set core spiritual fundamentals, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Jesus says that the whole law is wrapped up into that one statement. Remember, many times I've conveyed to you guys, if something is true, it's going to be simple. Simple. The law is not simple. In the Old Testament, there's 615 Levitical laws. That's not simple. That's codified complexity. In Jesus' law, it's one. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's simple. And if you practice that, then you would always stay within the spiritually acceptable boundaries when you rebel, when you go your own way, when you do what you want to do, when you experience what you want to do, and you do all these things without judgment. Source has provided us a playground. Source has provided us a beautiful world because the eternal cannot, in and of itself, experience many things that come out of evil. But in an artificial construct, creating and dividing itself into myriads of little divine sparks, personalities, each one possessing a part of the whole, it can experience vicariously through the Immortals. Within the construct, it can experience its own creation and not be contaminated by it. Remember, there was no judgment in the prodigal son. There was reward. Oh man, I already know so many religionists are going to be getting on my butt. But I don't care. I don't care. I'm so tired of the duplicities. It's crazy. It's just crazy. It's crazy how contaminating the religiosity can be, and they get us with all kinds of traps. I mean, one of the biggest traps in the world, the biggest trap in the world, is the trap of taking sides. Not taking sides and remaining neutral in as many affairs as I could remain neutral is how I became powerful in prison. And people deferred to my judgment. They deferred to my opinion. Yeah. This neutrality possesses powers of its own. Not taking sides allows one to see more objectively, with a better clarity of those who are looking at a phenomenon, looking at an ideology, experiencing a religious faith from within it. It's like looking at the free world from behind prison bars. It doesn't work. Not with accuracy. So one of the greatest traps is just taking sides. And from the religious standpoint, the only side you can take is you're either going to be with us in the Presbyterian Church or Lutheran Church or Southern Baptist Church or a Methodist Church or Catholic Church or a Mormon Church or Jehovah Witness or be a Jehovah Witness. You're going to either be with one of us or you're one of them. The Gentiles, yeah, the godless ones, the living dead. Yeah, they're going to get you to take sides. Oh, so it's no good. It's no good. The immortal does not judge the fallen, the sick, the destitute. No, the immortal does not judge those who have fallen for dungeon programming. The immortal goes their own way. The construct will take care of its own. Remember, it has always been one of my core teachings. We are not here to save the world. God could have done that from the beginning. And anything that is not as it should be, if you claim that our world is not as it should be, then you're essentially saying that the oversoul is deficient. Screw all the religious narratives, screw all the inventions, the Satan, the Lucifer, the rebellion in heaven, all this crap that's been introduced into the field. Yeah, like the angels having sex with human women to create giants. You already know. In the archaics research, we've done away with all that. We figured out exactly how giants were created. The religious dungeon programming is poisonous. It is absolutely toxic. Religionists have literally judged the entire world to condemn themselves. This is what has happened. So, the immortal is not going to condemn the lost. We are told to be like a lighthouse. A lighthouse shines. A lighthouse casts light everywhere. Yeah. The immortal exposes darkness. And sometimes it is absolutely necessary for immortals to fully immerse into the darkness in order to pluck some from the mire. But it's all discretionary. That's not everybody's duty. Those are for the strong. Those are for the strong errants, the strong spirits, those who are called. Some of you know who I'm talking. You're listening to me now. Some of you know who I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you now. Some of you who have every intention to bring people to the light, to wake them up, to make them understand. You recognize a kindred spirit who has bought the programming and you want to educate them. They're everywhere. And you have a great soul, and this is what you want to do, but you are unqualified to walk into a chapter of the Cossacks in East Texas and go talk to the individual who you know is almost there. You're not qualified to be in that person's world. It's going to cause you problems. But there are others who can walk into the darkness. They can go into the dungeons of this reality, and they can pull those people out. Sometimes, and the oversoul understands this, sometimes we do have to get our hands dirty in order to clean someone else off. It's necessary. Where what we have to do is quit beating ourselves up as if we did something with evil intent when it was merely just a rule infraction. We are our own worst enemies all the time. I tell you guys a lot. God is going to be way cooler than any of you have even predicted. Yeah, the lighthouse was the lighthouse. What was it? There was another parable. There was another parable. The lighthouse. Oh, a city upon a hill cannot be hidden. Yeah, a city upon a hill cannot be hidden. That was another parable like the lighthouse one. That's right. So, I'm not trying to get preachy. I'm not trying to get preachy at all. Could care less about pastors and preachers. And yeah, their authority means nothing to me. I've had many conversations and email exchanges by men of the cloth. I am unimpressed. To me, they are absolutely saturated with dungeon programming. I hear it as I read it in their emails. I read it. I'm sickened by it because I see all these textual and cultural and prejudicial attachments. They've got nothing to do with spirit and nothing at all. But I know the prodigal son story is even deeper because the soul that has endured pain is the soul that can heal others. And this has been shown throughout the history of the world. It is the souls that have gone to the darkest caves of the earth that have come forth with the brightest lights. The prodigal son is such a story. Only by experiencing all this negative base situations did the prodigal son return and understand. The prodigal son could have went everywhere. In shame could have stayed away from the father. In pride would not want the father to know that he had failed. Not all. Instead, he humbled himself and came back to the father. Not knowing what was going to happen, expecting punishment, got reward instead. The prodigal son could have went anywhere. But the very experiences that we acquire in life, the things that have beat us up, the things that have put fear into our heart, the things that have sent us running, the things that have made us pack all our things up and move and just get away, trying to start over, all the things that we have experienced in life that have brought pain, real pain into our experience are the very ingredients within our own spiritual architecture that allow us to see the same pain in others. Not only see them as an empath, but also know exactly what we need to say to those other souls to unlock that dungeon programming, to get them to see with clarity the immortal within. This is why the construct is designed this way. It's designed for you to fall. It's designed for you to hate. It's designed for you to be hungry. It's designed for you to feel this negative base emotions. It's designed for you in such a way as to test your limits, test your barriers. It is designed for you to wake the F up as to who you really are and begin to process information accurately outside the context of the programming, and to understand that we have never been alone. There has never been a time in your life you were alone. It's just like that old from 1950s. I saw old paintings from the 50s. It's just like that awesome painting where it shows this guy or this girl walking down a beach. One set of footprints was the humans, but there was a second set of footprints. Y'all see that picture? That picture is famous, and it's been replicated on many cards. Many cards. Face Diaper, you acting up? I gotta watch Face Diaper. That's my buddy there, man, but I gotta watch him. I just see people mention your name. I can't see a comment by you. So, the immortal knows, the immortal understands that pain is a prerequisite to paradise. It's exactly what's happening here. This is the alchemy of the spirit. This whole experience. There is nothing in the construct by which the alchemist can find to transmute base lead into gold. It doesn't exist. It was never the message. It was never the message. But that message in the medieval texts on alchemy up to the Renaissance, the real message was the construct itself. Itself is the tool for the spiritual alchemy. It's the construct that's turning us into these badass immortals. Because when you're able to demonstrate the spiritual qualities and powers, rights, privileges, and immunities that you can grant for yourself while you're in this restrictive medium, can you imagine what you're going to be qualified and able to do when all the restrictions are removed? Can you imagine who you're going to be when all this dungeon programming and this negative default programmed holography is completely removed from the field and you are able to reach your true potential? We're immortal. That day is coming. But before that day comes, we are not alone. But we're made to feel that we are. Just like that little child who's holding on to his dad's hand and he's made to walk, and dad lets him go. The child doesn't instantly turn around and fall down. The child tries to take 2 or 3 steps first before falling down. And then when he falls down, before he decides to cry, he looks up at dad. We're that little child. We have never been alone. But there's been times in our life that he let go. Help has always been in the field. We may not feel it. The problem, though, is that from a human standpoint, we look at our external reality as if help is there. Man, I can get help there. Or maybe I can get on my phone, get my black book out, get on my phone. Maybe I can find some help here. The belief that help is independent and external from us keeps that help independent and external from us. This is the nature of the construct. It's never going to make you out to be a liar. But once we internalize, once we slow down, once we process a situation and realize that we are moored to source and all power comes from within, we realize you can't even make that assessment without understanding that we are not alone. We are moored to something greater. And if I'm moored to something greater, and I'm connected to something far more powerful than I am, then by virtue of that connection, I'm able to draw from myself more than I contain. And if there is any little bit that I can draw forth that does not belong to me, but comes from somewhere else, then there is no restriction as to how much I can draw. The restriction lies in completely with me. When you process fully that we are not alone, you will understand that problem solving is not an external phenomenon. It is done internally. When you finally decide that this or this is going to be, because this or this is unacceptable, then that's exactly what's going to happen if you truly believe it. Because what follows belief is behavior. If the appropriate behavior doesn't follow the belief, you believed nothing at all, or you believe the opposite of what you professed to be true. And it means that you lacked the faith. And if you lack the faith, it's because you're not convinced that you're moored to source. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to drink to that one too. Somebody said that I want to let go of dungeon program. I saw the chat's moving too fast, but somebody said I want to let go of dungeon programming. Let me tell you what you just told the construct. This is what you just conveyed to the construct when you type that comment. I want to let go of dungeon programming. You just informed the construct that you're not letting go of dungeon programming because it's merely something that you want, not something that you are. If you don't want to participate in dungeon programming, then you choose to be free and you go your own way. Dungeon programming comes in many, many aspects. Which ones are you talking about? Once you isolate exactly what it is you want to be free from, then you merely do the opposite and you are free from it. The executive decision will always be honored by the construct, just like the idea that, man, I've been a Southern Baptist all my life, it's going to be so hard to break away. Okay, you are a divine immortal connected to source, and the construct is your servant, and it will absolutely obey the belief that it's going to be hard to break away from dungeon programming of Southern Baptist doctrine. It's going to be hard. The construct's going to make sure it's hard because you're an immortal and you will be obeyed. You better guard your power because you use your own power against yourself every single day. Oh, that water's so good. That water's so good. You got to be careful what you say to the construct. You have to be careful what you do. But in all things, you must realize that behavior is what modifies your reality, because your behavior is indicative of a pattern of belief, or you wouldn't have that behavior. That's what behavior is. It's a pattern of belief. It's how you act out. It's repetition. So what you repeatedly do is what you become. The construct makes sure this is so. If you look at your situation completely different than the world wants you to look at it, the world wants you to think opposition exists. And when you go to thinking about all the opposition, and I do it too on a daily basis, I am not separating myself from you guys. I am subject to all the dungeon programming just like you are. I have my moments of strength. I have my moments of weakness. But if you are regarding reality as something that is hostile to you, the construct will obey the immortal within, and hostile situations will begin popping up in your life. If you believe that there is opposition to anything that you want to accomplish in life, the construct will make sure that opposition appears so that you are telling the truth. If you believe that something is going to come to pass in your life very quickly, then the construct can move those variables around so fast that it will even surprise you when it happens. Absolutely fast. And the reason is because the construct is not restricted by the dictates of the continuum of what we call space-time. It's not. The construct is core programming, and that programming is perceived by us sequentially. Therefore, the past and the future seem to be something separate from the present, but this is only perceived that way because the filters of the central nervous system moor us to an avatar that gives us absolute coordinates. Those coordinates can only be at one place at one time. But the construct is spiritual, and it doesn't obey those laws. It merely imposes them. What this means is that there is nothing that is impossible in your reality for tomorrow, because whatever is the necessary build to get to that point, if you decide that something is going to happen tomorrow, then it doesn't matter if what you decide it takes 90 days to actually happen in real life. The construct, the construct is absolutely able in an instant to knit the programming as if your desire appeared 89 days ago and build through the programming all the way to where you go to sleep and wake up and what you thought would take 90 days of building and accrual was suddenly right there put in your lap the very next day. The past does not obtain. And because the construct is not in any way restricted by the programming of the present, it can go into the past. It can equally go into the future as well. If there's going to be future obstacles in your way for what you want to do in life or what you want to bring into reality into somebody else's life, that's what an immortal can do. The immortal doesn't just affect its own field. The immortal can affect the fields of others. It all depends on intent, what that immortal is here to do in the construct. And if it's your will to positively influence something on another immortal, it can be done. And the construct can even knit those circumstances into the future to already be there. Programming that has not even yet been activated in the sequential experience that we are in, but in coordinates that we have not yet experienced. I tell you guys a lot. The concepts that are put forth in archaics don't necessarily have the sophisticated vernacular to support them. We have to deal with the words that we have available to us today. So, oh, I see Perceiver, Joel. Joel, I sent you a message. I don't know. I thought I sent you a message on Twitter. Joel, I wanted you to get another. Let's do another chat on my channel. I never saw a message back from you, or maybe it was an email. I never saw a response, but I know you're in the chat now. I know you can hear me. I've called him Toltec Shaman. He goes by Perceiver on YouTube. He's been a guest a few times. He's a good friend. I've met him personally. He was one of my speakers in San Diego. Great guy. So this thank you, man. I'll reach out. I didn't see it. Cool. Awesome. So we're not alone. We never have been alone. And this is what makes, and I'm saying this as humble as I can because I'm guilty of it as well. But this is what makes fear so nonsensical. Fear is the greatest dungeon programming of all. Fear. Because fear is born. Now, there's an old saying that says fear is born out from experience. And to a limited extent, that's correct. But fear is really born out of a belief that we are alone. And we're not. Because the immortal inside the construct that is moored to source is never alone. Something else looks through your eyes. Something else listens to the world through your ears. When you eat food and you drink, something else is using your taste buds. Your olfactory senses are used by someone else. Your hearing, your audible, it's all used by something else. When you touch, something else is experiencing something through you. When two souls are using their avatars and they're making love, Source is experiencing both at the same time. We are never alone. And when you fully process that when you're walking your dog out in public and you're looking at the world around you, that something greater than you is experiencing those moments with you, there is nothing to fear. 26 years in prison, I had many things to fear. I had many things to fear. And there were many fearful things that happened around me. And I saw what fear could do. If you think Hollywood's lying about people's hair turning white from pure fear, they're not. It's true. I have seen men wither away in prison out of pure fear. Fear of their environment, fear of the guards, fear of what other inmates would do to them. I've seen it. And I've seen also what men are capable of doing when they are absolutely fearless. Yes. When the true immortal in this construct understands that not only are they not alone, but they have within them the resources to deal with every situation that comes before them. And if they don't have enough power or energy or emotional capacity to deal with whatever, they can always draw from themselves more than they contain. It has to come from somewhere. It's not coming from the individual. Many people have expressed astonishment at my memory. And over I have told people, I do not have this information in my brain. Over and over I've told you guys, the brain does not contain data. The brain, we have been lied to by the biologists. We have been lied to. The medical fields, they don't know what they're talking about. The brain is a receiver and a broadcaster. Information is already in the field. The soul that learns to resonate with the overfield, the highly individualized, informed field of the personal spirit, when it has learned to tap into the overfield of the construct, it can pull this information at will. Its information is like archived. It's all archived. It's all around me. It's there. I don't have to be in my studio. I can go sit in Starbucks and captivate people for 8 hours of diatribe. I never stop. I'll just ask people to buy me more and more coffee. Information is in the field. This is why I don't fear debate. I promise you guys, if you ever do see me in a real debate, I will never ever defer to a source material. Ever. You'll never see me with clip notes. Nothing. None of that. I don't need it. It's in the field. Once it passes through the neural receptors, once it passes through, it's archived in the field. God is experiencing everything through us, with us. God is the architect of the field. The field is made up of God. The closer an individual soul is immersed into the oversoul, the more that soul can tap into the field and bring out of that field anything it needs whenever it needs it. I don't need just data sometimes. Sometimes I need courage. Sometimes I need comprehension. Sometimes I need intuition. I need understanding. Sometimes I see someone and something is triggered in me, and I need to be aware of why I received a signal from source as to why this individual has come to my attention. I have walked up on many complete strangers in public. I don't know how I left them. I don't know. I just know that I was compelled to say things, and I say them, and I go on about my life. I don't know what it did for that individual, but when the compulsion is there, it's there for a reason. The compulsions come from source. When you're tapped into source, you are doing the work of something else. I'm not going to not do that work. I'm not going to quench that spirit. As long as I remain tapped into the field, I am able to armor myself against everything. I am able to draw the energy I need no matter how exhausted I am. I am able to say exactly what needs to be said and to be heard by those who need to hear it. It's not because of any personal power of my own. It's because I just woke up. I'm not even that smart, guys. I don't have a high IQ. And I've got an eighth grade education. Everything after eighth grade is autodidactic. I woke up and I tapped into source. And once I realized that I and my maker are one, there isn't shit you can do to scare me. There isn't shit I fear as far as you judging me for my actions. I don't care about anybody's opinion, and I sure as hell don't give a damn about being scrutinized when it comes to anything that I've put into the field as true. Any of the archaics data comes up under scrutiny, I promise you the individuals who scrutinize it will be dealt with. You'll hear about it on my channel. It's because I'm tapped into source. My discoveries came from source. My energy to sit for 16 hours a day and read and absorb data came from source. My curiosity, even on the most boring engineering and anthropological manuals, came from source. My patience in writing thousands and thousands of pages by handwriting on legal tablets of all the data that interested me, that patience, it came from source. None of that was mine. It's because I've never been alone. I've never been alone. And if I would have always kept that thirst before me, my life may have come out totally differently. Totally differently. But it's so easy to forget because the construct is one big distraction. And it's real easy to get wrapped up in phenomena and totally forget that the entire time, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, we are not alone. There is always something experiencing all of this with us. One of God's names in the New Testament, Emmanuel, it means God with us. None of the things about me that amaze other people are even mine. They're not. I'm just a prodigal son who went his own way, tripped up real bad a few times, but I came back. And when I came back, I realized that the world that has been presented to me is not the world that I was raised to believe in. And because I realized I wasn't alone, I was able to do great things in this life. With an eighth grade education, get 17 books published. With an eighth grade education, be able to process information at levels most people will never obtain. Able to go through hundreds of philosophical texts, hundreds of scientific texts, thousands of historical texts, a few mathematical, and able to process all this information, put it all together into something that was workable. And at the same time, I was able to see all the patterns that the entire world has missed, like the Phoenix phenomenon. But it wasn't me. It only came because I was tapped into something greater. And maybe it was because of extreme loneliness in prison. Maybe it was because of long hours just cogitating and thinking about the things I was writing on. Maybe it was by virtue of imagination, imagining what it would be like to be free. I was in prison at 17. By the time I was 25 years old, I didn't even know what the world was like anymore. By the time I was 35 years old, the world was totally alien to me. By the time I was 40 years old, the world had just become some technologically advanced thing. It was nothing like like 1990. I went to prison before the internet existed. It was called the ARPANET. It was only U.S. military. I was 17 years old in 1990. The world was totally different in 2016 when I was released. And yet it was still the same. When I got out in 2016, the technology was different. The culture was different. People were the same. They dressed different. They talked different. I noticed how effeminate men were, but they still had the exact same qualities as the humans in prison, as the humans before when I was a kid in the 80s and 70s. Because the whole ride, all the way here till I'm 51 now, it was 34 years ago when I was 17. And this ride was all possible because I was never alone. In all that journey, despite thinking I was alone, despite thinking I'd have been abandoned, despite the times I literally told God things that I wouldn't even tell my enemies today. Oh yeah, I've cussed God out. Oh, I've given him the business. Yeah, I've talked real stupid to God a few times. And in the past, it's been so weird how my life just really smoothed out and straightened out after I just unleashed emotionally on God. Just totally called him a piece of shit and everything. And went on and said, and you know what? I've done it. Yeah. If you think that there is something I have not accused God of or have not said offensively to God, you would be wrong. But I have. Because I was a prodigal son. And when I fell all the way. Not just in society. Yeah. I fell all the way and went to a very dark place. And the whole time, I was not alone. When I came out of that darkness, I came out with a tethering to source that was so strong that now I can't not feel it. Now I can do something, stupid and instantly regret it. My conscience pricks me instantly if I say something that's even an error. My connection to source now is so strong that it allows me to predict people's behavior, to predict the people's behavior in my immediate environment, to ascertain threats. My threat assessment is off the charts. Yeah, Dawn can tell you. I first meet people. It doesn't even come out till later. When I first meet people, it's like Source just gave me a whole download, and then it turns out to be true. It's like, wow, I got all that off 3 seconds of just looking at somebody before we even spoke. Guys, when you're moored to Source, there is no reason to fear. When you are absolutely, truly moored to Source, you will feel no fear, but you will instill fear in all those around you who don't understand the spiritual dynamic. We appear to be strange, eccentric, even violent. We appear to be a threat. Those who are not moored to Source strongly, they don't feel it. Everybody's moored to Source, even the lost. Even the myriads of the living lost are all moored to Source. They just have lost that sense connection. But they're still moored to Source. But those whose connections are very strong, you know who you are. Because when you hear the truth, you vibrate on that frequency. When you hear something and you resonate with it, yeah, if you're hearing it from me and you're agreeing with me and you're listening to me and you're getting spiritually empowered by things that are coming out of my mouth, it is because what is coming forth from me, from deep within me, is already in your possession. You already own it. All I'm doing is like sympathetic vibratory physics. I am merely strumming spiritual chords right here that way through the distance of space-time where you are at your coordinates, you're resonating with it. Remember, when an immortal does anything inside the construct, the signal of that activity permeates through the entire construct instantaneously. not at the speed of light. Speed of light is finite, instantaneously. We affect the field instantaneously because the we that I'm referring to is you and what is inside of you. You are not alone. So to go through life in fear is to literally convey the signal that you have no trust in the oversoul. And sadly, the construct is going to reciprocate. And it's going to give you reasons why you should not trust the oversoul. And the whole time, this feedback loop is something you suffer. Despite that, you're still more to source. And at any given time, you can stop that feedback loop, not by anything external of you, because this is all construct. It's all constructual programming. The only way you can correct the situation is to draw from yourself more than you contain. If you don't have what it takes to get it done, then just borrow it from source. That's what it's there for. Coffee's so good. I'm getting through a whole video without mentioning certain people's names. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? It's not one of those days. I'm not worried about them. I'm not worried about them today. Yeah, belief. Fear is the opposite of belief. Belief is the trigger that changes spirit to matter. Belief is that trigger. Spirit is everywhere. The recipes for spirit is everywhere. Just like DNA, one little tiny piece of DNA contains the coding for the all. One tiny cell in biology contains the coding for the whole life form. Yeah. In the field, it's like a Mandelbrot set of programming. In the field, one tiny piece of the field contains the programming for all the holography. Yeah, this is why we can create things mentally ex nihilo. Belief is what turns spirit into matter. The belief that you're going to acquire what you need when you need it is going to create a situation where the construct of tomorrow, which does not yet exist in actuality, in perceivable reality, but it does exist in what's called potentia, spiritual programming. It does exist there. Everything exists. Remember, God is eternal. That means everything has already been created. There is nothing you can imagine that you want to experience or you want to possess that the oversoul has not already created. It just doesn't exist. You are not going to best the oversoul. Therefore, belief is what transmutes spirit into matter. That matter is what you experience by virtue of your belief. Feedback loop. It's no different than fear programming. It's just the opposite, though. Fear. You are going to experience the very things you fear because fear is a projection. It's a signal that is broadcast through the whole construct, and the whole construct reciprocates by knitting for you the very circumstances that you fear because it's a feedback loop. So flip it around, and the opposite of fear is faith. Faith is a belief that something is going to happen or you're going to experience something. Faith turns spirit into matter. Matter is then experienced by you as the fulfillment of your faith. The same feedback loop, different programming. Layla Bloom, I wish you could bartend me some coffee right now. I appreciate it, though. Let's see here. So, uh, again, the whole dynamic that we are not alone and the prodigal son and that judgment wasn't the result of that parable. It's profound. It means, it literally means that mistakes are a prerequisite to spiritual growth. It means that to make a mistake doesn't qualify a soul to be judged. An error, no. Making mistakes is not the same as behavior at all. Behavior is the result of habit, what is made habitual. That's what behavior is. A certain set of acts that are done repeatedly. That's behavior. Your behavior creates your reality. It always will. Your behavior is the result of how you see yourself in this construct. The trajectory of your life is exactly what is reflected in your daily behavior. The person that's always making mistakes and never learning from them, that is not who we're talking about. That's not who we're talking about at all. That's a fool. We're talking about the prodigal son who stopped making the mistakes, who finally humbled himself and came back to the Father. Coming back to the Father means looking for something deeper, looking for source, looking for the oversoul, coming back. Many of you have done it. Some of you started off as a Jehovah's Witness. Things didn't kin to you, and you looked into bad, the Baptists and the Lutherans and the Methodists, and none of those really jibed to you. But just because you can't find and isolate a denomination that agrees to something that's palatable to you, it still didn't quench the immortal within. And you're still left bereft and wanting for a spirituality that can't be found in organized religion. That's what happened to me. When I finally divorced myself from Southern Baptist, I went through a dark place. I finally just realized, man, Southern Baptist stuff is, it's just dungeon programming. That's all it is. It's just packaged spirituality. It's artificial. Yeah. Well, but it doesn't mean I abandoned God. It doesn't mean that I just wanted to be a sinner. It doesn't mean that I became a piece of shit. It doesn't mean that I went out and just decided to do whatever I wanted in life. I didn't become an atheist. I didn't become somebody who, Epicurean. I didn't do something just because I wanted to do it. I still searched for that missing element because I knew that I was a spirit. And knowing that I was a spirit meant that I had a creator. And that's what I hungered for. I wanted to understand my place in this reality. And in order to do that, I had to get in that quiet space. And I got tired of searching. I was done looking up, looking down, north, east, south, west, looking in the Stoic philosophy. I was done reading Aristotle. I was done with Plato. I was done with Arthur Schopenhauer and Descartes. I've read them all. I went through Friedrich Nietzsche's material quick, absorbed the hell out of it. Henry Cornelius Agrippa, I went through it all. Paul Karras, and then I just couldn't. Albert Camus, I read them. And I couldn't find what I was looking for. And finally I realized in all this erudition, in all this absorption of all these books, all this material, I realized it wasn't even there. There wasn't a single book in the world that can answer what I was hungering for, not even the Bible. So I started to look within. And the search within led me to an entirely different concept of reality. which made sense of this artificial world that I found myself in, and this real oversoul that was on the outside of this construct, but was still experiencing it through me. And when it dawned on me that I am a vehicle for something greater, that's when I became invincible. When it dawned on me that within me lies the potential of the all, that's when I began to fear nothing. When you truly understand that you are moored to source, and that source is experiencing this life sim with you, you're going to shock the ones that know you, because they're going to instantly see the difference. Your entire life can change in an instant. Remember, I've said this many times. Every single moment is pregnant with possibilities, but they're never going to give birth until you understand the dynamic that you are not alone and never have been. Just not. And there's no other way that I can keep saying the same thing. You've just never been alone. The immortal within knows that because he is not alone, that he has to be very careful about the energy that comes out of his mouth. Words have power. I'm guilty of this myself. I do it all the time. The immortal within is a torchbearer for something that possesses far more power than other mortals can withstand within the construct. We do have to be careful about what we say about others. We have to be careful about what we do about others. And like I said, I'm telling you the truth, although I'm guilty of the error. I have to be a hypocrite in order to convey the truth sometimes, but I'll be that hypocrite in order to convey that truth. But we play destroyer all the time. We play creator all the time. With words, we both create and destroy. And many times we're surprised by the result, but the end result is never because of any power that we had. We merely borrowed something else's power, and it did what it did because we played conduit to the oversoul. What I'm trying to tell you is the realization that you can possess powers that are unfathomable, that can affect the entire field in an instant and everybody within it. The very fact that a single individualized soul can affect the many comes with it a grave responsibility. It does. We can destroy, but we can also heal. When others are struggling and they have an inability to tap into the source, they have an inability to fully comprehend their position in place with the oversoul inside the construct, we can act as intercessor. And we can bring that healing, we can bring that understanding to them. We do this all the time. All I'm explaining to you right now is that there are amplifications to this power that you can tap into. But the very fact that you possess this power is very easy to prove. Let me explain. It is widely known in psychology that when a very intelligent person is addressing a small room of people, most of the people listening to that person will begin to resonate. They will begin to listen, and there will be a field created by the interrelationships between all the brainwave activity going on in that small room. A very intelligent person conveying information to people of lesser intelligence or lesser knowledge can bring them up to his level for the period of time of his discourse. And people can think more clearly, they can process information faster, more lucidly, and they can comprehend what that individual is saying while they're listening in his presence. But 2 hours later, after they've gone home and they try to cogitate what exactly it was that was being conveyed to them, they can no longer grasp those principles they could as they could do it in his presence. This is widely documented. The very fact that one soul can do this to several and bring those souls up, bring their cognition, bring their demonic enhancement, their abilities up, to bring their ability to comprehend all up, as long as he or she is speaking in their presence, so that they fully grasp everything and they understand. The very fact that all these souls can vibrate on the same frequency and exchange information means that any soul, remember, archaics tenet, if something is true somewhere, then it's probably true everywhere. The very fact that one soul in the construct can do something, it literally means that every soul can do it. So if any soul can do something like that, then it's probably true as well that it can be amplified to a level that would affect the entire field. You just have to find the right individual talking about the right subject with the right amount of souls listening at the same time. So if we are not alone, and if judgment wasn't even the result of rebellion, then we see a different scenario unfolding. We are always thinking from the perspective that consequences are going to follow our actions. In the prodigal son parable, the consequences did follow the actions. We have been programmed by organized religion and even philosophy to believe that the prodigal son should have been punished when he returned. This is what we've been programmed to believe. You got to be punished because you did all these things. You got to be punished. But he was punished. He lost his money. He lost face. He lost his pride. He was uncomfortable. He lost weight. He wasn't hungry. He lost the amenities in life. He lost his home. He lost his family. Yeah. He lost a lot of things along the way. But when by the time he returned not because there was something to gain at all. He had lost everything. But he returned not knowing if he was going to get punished or what was going to happen. In the prodigal son, the judgment was the experiences and their consequences. If the prodigal son, as I showed in a prior video, if the prodigal son is Jesus's ultimate model for our position in the construct and relationship with God, the co-creator relationship, if that's true, then the meaning of this entire parable is literally that our experiences and the way our life unfolds inside the construct is the very judgment you are to expect, and the religionists can go to hell because they're the only ones that will go there. It's a place that doesn't exist. It's dungeon programming to fill up those offering plates. That's all it's for. What loving God would ever create eternal torment? It's just a stupid concept. It's dumb. Absolutely dumb. So, the immortal within, that knows he or she is not alone, is the immortal that cannot be stopped. It is the immortal that affects the field and the fields of others. It is the immortal that goes their own way. I have dubbed that an errant, because an errant is one who defies the constructual programming in any way that it comes. The errant is not subject to the cataclysm protocols. The errant is not subject to dungeon programming. The errant is not subject to the base medium of negative default programming. The errant is not subject to deception, because intuition, empathy, and imagination are what moors the oversoul immortal. These three qualities aren't even yours. Intuition comes from God. Empathy is a godlike ability to feel what somebody else feels. And imagination is the creative aspect of the Godhead, not yours. The very fact that you experience intuition, that you empathize with others, that you can imagine different things, is because we are not alone. And we are the vehicle by which something far greater than us is experiencing this life cell. When that is fully processed, you will realize there is nothing to fear at all. The immortal that knows there's nothing to fear becomes two things at will, whenever they want to will. And I have demonstrated this. Can become a receiver. By become a receiver, the immortal within can absorb anything that it searches for in the field. I don't care if you're a mystic and you call it the Akashic field. I don't care in the holographic universe you call it I forgot what kind of field they called it. It doesn't matter. The Oregon field. I don't remember, but the field itself is swimming with information. This is the subject matter of Ishak Bentov's Stalking the Wild Pendulum. In a brief tour of higher consciousness, he provides exercises that show you that information is in the field, and historical examples of when things were discovered at the exact same time. And fiction books were written of the same concepts, written at the exact same time by different people in different languages and different hemispheres. It's because the information is in the field, and that brains are processing information. That's what they do. They don't contain information. They don't store information. They process the information that's already in the field. And the immortal within can pull that data from the field and then broadcast it in such a way as to fool other souls in the construct that they have memorized all these materials when they haven't. It's not memory. Do not be amazed by the elucidation of so many facts, especially mathematical and all the calendrical things, the things that I can go hours and hours discoursing on. Yeah, and my dates never change. Thousands of dates I've given you guys over and over from the beginning of my channel and all my published books, and every bit of it is a perfectly synthetic history, and I've never needed to change a single date. Why? Because it's in the field. Every bit of it. When you realize that all knowledge is actually in the field, yeah, some people have copied it from the field and put it in these books. That's okay. Some people have misinterpreted information that was in the field. Their imagination wasn't working quite right. Their interpretive capacity wasn't right, and they wrote books that are full of BS. They have completely corrupted what was in the field when they changed spirit to matter. Yeah, happens all the time. I'm not mentioning any names like that in this video. It's not necessary. But we choose, as an immortal, are we going to be a broadcaster or are we going to be a receiver? What we do. We don't let the construct dictate the terms of our existence. We dictate our own terms. And we have that right because Source has given us the one thing that we need to know. As long as we're living in accordance with that one divine spiritual law, there are no other of these weird spiritual religious laws that obtain. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you obey that law, then the immortal within has all the rights, privileges, and immunities they can imagine. It can do what it wants to do. It can build the life it wants to live. It can do all these things. In the individual errant that is the most successful in life, the happiest in life, doing the things that it wants to do, enjoying all the things of the construct, is the one that knows absolutely that she is not alone. He is absolutely armored by the oversoul itself. Does not have to be a long video. That's my video today, guys. That's my presentation. Several people have been asking me to do it. They want me to go into basically what my spirituality is. Now I have many spiritual videos, and they're all set in different ways. But the core takeaway here is that you have to remove the idea that you are a lone soul passing through a construct on your own, because you were never on your own. And the very idea that something would create you only to throw you in something literally means you have a very contorted, very unhealthy view of what is otherwise a holy, loving, and righteous oversoul. Religion has given us many ideas, and I've fallen victim to them myself, but it's given us many ideas and ways to interpret our situation, this reality that we find ourselves in. It's given us all these ways, and this has led us down many false roads and false trails. It's led to the creation of denominations and doctrines that are silly and ridiculous, when everything, when reduced to its lowest common denominators, literally shows us the entire experience of world history up until this point. All the philosophies, all the religions, all the travelogues, everything, all the data, putting it together can be simplified. That this experience isn't just ours. We're sharing it with something. And as long as we recognize that what we're going through, it's going through too, then we can always draw from ourselves the very tools and energies and patience and emotions and all the things that we need to help us through that experience, because that's why it's there. It wants to experience these things with us. We are God, infinite and desiccated at the exact same time. That's my presentation, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. What is it? 1 hour and 50, kept it under 2 hours. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. You already know that song, guys. I heard somebody said, what's his name? Quantum of Conscious. He sang that song one time. I'm not trying to copy him. I thought that's pretty cool. Thought that's really cool. Archaics Academy's still going strong, guys. We made a bunch of extra drives for those who want the whole deal. We've given out a lot of free scholarships, and the downloads will be available for those of you. Hey, Merrill, 5239 BC. I know you didn't. Somebody hit me with that 138. I thank you, Dr. Corey Stern. Corey, I got to send you a drive. Yeah. A lot of good friends in the chat, guys. I went through it today. I really went through it. Yeah, man, I went through it today. I'm not even gonna go into a lot of details. Nothing bad happened to me. It just I got hit with a lot of things from a lot of different people, and it was really weird to me. It was very unusual to me. I even had to delay the video an hour, but it's like it's almost as if I should have never announced I was doing this video, and I just do the video because it's like the field threw everything at me. Yeah, it's crazy. Had no time to prepare for this video. It just in the end, I just asked Source right before the video started. I just asked Source, hey, you know what? I had all kinds of things I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to, you know what? In the end, just you know what? I need them to hear whatever it is you need them to hear, because whatever I prepared is gone. So many different people took my time up today, and every bit of it was unplanned. I had no. There was just no getting out of it. It's just one after another after another after another. Wow, this is incredible. I barely had time to get in here and start this video. Anyway, I love you guys.